Okay, thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to moderate this panel about the latest technology, generative AI. About 10, 12 years ago, Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world, and that seems to be very true. But I think a few years ago, Jeff Huang, who is the founder of, or the CEO of NVIDIA, said, AI is eating software. And that is also seems to be very true. I think it was just last year when Stable Diffusion, Jerry's company's product, was launched. And also it was almost probably less than a year ago when ChatGPT 3.5 was launched to the public. And ever since then, just generative AI seems to be taking over the world. So we are very excited to talk about this topic. But before we start, I would like to ask you a quick question. And please, with a show of your hand, how many have used generative AI? That is like 95%, I would say, 95%. And of those, how many believe that generative AI would change your job or your company? 60%, 65%, maybe higher, 70. I hope I have a AI vision to, automatically assess, but probably 70% or so. And how many of you use it still every day? Oh, that's quite a lot. Like 25%, 30? Maybe less, okay. I'm bad at vision. Okay, maybe 20% of you use it every day. So I think that's a very high, compared to the very general public. That shows you the interest that you have towards this topic. So for this session, we will divide up in three parts. First, we want to talk about some introduction of AI, because not all of you are super familiar. And also, it's very hard to keep up with happening at the latest. So we will start talking about what's happening here. And then, secondly, we will talk about the competition and co-invention among the AI layers. So within the AI, there are foundation model layer and application layer. We would like to discuss the interaction between two, as well as the competition here. And then, thirdly, we'll talk about the impact of AI to the general public, general society, and business as a whole. But before we start, I would like to ask each panelist to briefly talk about, maybe in 2-3 minutes, how do you relate to this topic? Because we have a very, very diverse background and perspective. So let's start with Wakana-san.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's so nice to be here, and thank you very much for such a wonderful opportunity to be at G1 Global. I'm Wakana Tanaka. I'm the country manager for LinkedIn since March, so it's been 6 months on board. Generative AI is changing every industry, but most importantly for us, it's changing the future of work, how we work. How people look for the jobs, how people develop new skills, how companies acquire new skills and develop skills. So that's really the focus I'm going to talk about today, and how I spend most of my day with related to AI. I hope every one of you have a LinkedIn logo on your smartphone, hopefully, the blue logo. And beneath that logo, we have a huge amount of data called economic graph. And in it, we have 950 members globally with 64 million companies online. And also, we have 41,000 skills with taxonomy. And with that, we've seen a lot of shift, especially beginning this year, how Gen AI has been shifting the world of skills and talents. And we've also seen the increase in job postings that mention ChatGPT by 21 times since the beginning of the year. So there have been so many more jobs that companies are looking for with the skills of AI, ChatGPT, and people are also upskilling to acquire the AI skills. In Japan, the people who have AI skills have increased by 9 times, which is quite a lot. So there's a good thing to look forward to. And we also offer online courses at LinkedIn. And the most popular courses are all Gen AI too in 2023 since the beginning of the year. So I hope that you also will get to know that. And another data I wanted to share is also 72% of global chief executives say that soft skills are more important than AI skills too. So it's very important for us to know what skills that only humans can perform, like creative thinking, leadership, and communication, and also ethical outcomes to drive those outcomes are going to be very increasingly important for. So quickly, that's the how I relate to AI.
Thanks, Wakana-san. Great. Jerry?
Hi, I'm Jerry. I'm the head of Japan for Stability AI. We just started the Japan office in January this year. And yeah, my career has always been dealing with data. So I started out as a data analyst, and then I shifted from analyzing data to building machine learning models for data. And then now we're building generative AI models still based on data. So it's amazing that over these, last 12 or 15 years that I've been dealing with data, the amount of value that we're able to extract from the data and the way we can make the data work for us has improved so much. So yeah, really excited to still be in this data-driven role. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And Karim?
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me and to being with you today. So my role with AI is in 4 parts. The first is as a scholar. So I've been studying AI systems for about a decade, building some systems through my lab with NASA and Harvard Medical School, but then also really thinking about its implications for how we run businesses and how the economy changes from that. So I had a book come out in 2020 called "Competing in the Age of AI," which really articulates a new way of for companies to work. And most recently, I have a paper out looking at how generative AI changes knowledge workers as well. So the first bit is a scholar. The second bit is a educator and teacher. So I've taught many classes related to digital transformation and technology and AI. So right now I have a large-scale course in our exec ed program for AI as well that we teach online. And so it's always fun to sort of think about the ways in which we translate what we know into real practitioners. The third thing is as an advisor. So I work with companies. I'm on the board of Mozilla. So we make the Firefox browser. And we just launched a new company called Mozilla.ai to create open source AI systems. And I'm on the board of that. But I also advise lots of large companies in their AI efforts. And then finally, I'm also an advisor to startups and help to create sort of new organizations that are AI first as well.
Okay, thanks, Karim. By the way, I took your class about 10 years ago at HBS. And,
early days, yeah.
It was my best, one of my best class. And actually, his class talks a lot about the latest technology and startups and stuff, and which led me to my career at venture capital. So thank you very much for your class.
Very inspiring professor.
Very inspiring, yes. Okay, thanks a lot. So with that, let's talk a little bit about generative AI, and let's lay the foundation for this discussion topic. And I would like to ask maybe Jerry first to talk a little bit about what is Gen AI and what's the latest, and what are the different structure, for example, what's the difference between foundation model layer and the application? What's happening?
Right. So to kind of break it down simply, first we have machine learning, we have AI, and then we have machine learning, which is a subset of AI. So machine learning is basically allowing machines or computers to learn from data, right? And then we had the kind of deep learning boom, which was triggered around like 2012. Where we use deep neural networks that are basically a certain architecture of machine learning to learn from data more effectively. And then generative AI is almost always a subset of deep learning, right? So people figured out there's certain deep learning architectures that worked very well to generate things, right? So the difference between generative AI and non-generative AI is that previously these models were mostly for predicting or classifying, right? So, given the sequence of numbers like 357, like what is the next number? Or, given this like email with this content, classify it as fraud or non-fraud, right? So it was not really able to generate things, right? But now we can, generate text, image, like actions of robots, 3D models, basically anything that can be represented as data, you can train a model to generate it, right? So, that has opened up a lot of possibilities to kind of augment human work in various ways, right? And then you also asked the difference between kind of foundation models and also the application layer. Actually, there are a couple of layers, but basically foundation models are these machine learning models, typically generative AI models, that are broadly useful for a lot of use cases, right? So typically a lot of data and a lot of compute power is used to build these kind of very broadly useful models that can generate like almost any kind of image or almost any kind of text, right? And then people would, for example, build applications like mobile apps or websites on top of these foundation models, or sometimes fine-tune, so do a little bit more of training or learning for these models to get even better at a specific subset, right? Such as like summarizing news articles or something for a specific task, and then it would take a lot less cost to specialize in that specific use case compared to the cost of training that original foundation model. Yeah, and then the application layer, of course, you can, like provide a good UI or UX, like on top of that foundation model, or perhaps on top of a fine-tuned version of that foundation model.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much for that brief, explanation of the in a very complicated topic. Wakana-san or Karim, is there anything that you want to add in terms of what's generative AI, or what's the latest that you observe in the world?
Karim, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So the way I would think about this, just building on what Jerry said, there's been about 20 years of machine learning that we've all gotten used to. So if you sort of think about, the recommendations you get on your smartphone for movies, for music, for directions, for optimizing your travel, you name it. Those are all systems for friends on LinkedIn, who to connect with. Right, those are all built on, I'm a huge LinkedIn user, so just so you know, so all those have been built on 20 years of advances in machine learning, where we basically had lots of data available on these platforms, and the platforms wanted to make sense of them, so they started to apply statistics and computer science to their problems, to data problems, and then even started to improve on them as well. So there's been 20 years of that, and we've all basically have used them, but it's been in the plumbing of our systems. It's been in the plumbing of our systems. They made predictions on pricing. They made predictions on promotions, you name it, all those kinds of things. Generative AI sort of takes that machinery, and instead of making predictions, sort of a deterministic view, like X might happen, Y might happen, right? And it does a creative twist. Right? It creates new things. It doesn't predict what the next action per se. It predicts new things. It creates new things. And the way I think about this in common terms is that this generative AI tool, Stability is part of, ChatGPT is part of, Llama is part of, and so forth, is basically, from my perspective, a cognitive aid. It lowers the cost of cognition, right? It lowers the cost of problem solving. And so one was about making predictions, making us more efficient, making us more effective, helping us scale things. This is really very much a companion to humans on how to potentially be more creative, how to potentially be more effective. So, I know very little Japanese, but now with generative AI systems, I can convert my papers into fluent Japanese. Right, that's all been built into it, and I don't have to exert the effort of learning Japanese. The machine can do it for me, and so that's how I sort of see the difference between the two eras.
If I could add on to that, because generative AI is so good at problem solving and more seamless the way it interacts with us, we have the data that for people on LinkedIn, I hope many of you are, 25% of your skills that you use on your job today will be affected by generative AI. So your job is going to change, even though you're not changing your job. So that means, a lot of changes will be taking place for the job, for the work that you do. And that's why it's really important to keep upskilling yourself. Reskilling is really an important part for every job coming up. And we also see the difference between generations. On LinkedIn.com, there's many discussions taking place about generative AI. And when we analyze it, the younger generation, or Gen Z, are more open and adaptable, whereas the more mature generation is more cautious to take on the generative AI. We just did also a research in Japan and globally about how AI is being used at work. I asked that question to the audience now too, but Japan, unfortunately, only 19% of the people use AI at work today in Japan, whereas 71% of people in Indonesia uses ChatGPT or generative AI already in their work, and 70% in Brazil, and it follow the world. And so Japan is already lagging behind in the usage. I'm not sure if it has to do with the generation gap or something like that, but there's definitely need for us in Japan to reskill and apply AI in our daily work.
Thanks a lot, Wakao-san. I want to get back to that topic later on, the impact of AI to the workforce and society in general, and what can we do about that. Next, because this panel is titled Competition and Co-Invention, I want to talk a little bit about the competition first. So as we said, there are a lot of layers in AI tech stack, but maybe one of the most important is the foundation layer. In foundation model layer, there are a lot of players, including Stability AI, that has raised hundreds of $millions or more, like billions of dollars, and creating these huge foundation models. And some people say that only very few companies will be able to sustain investment at this scale. And there will be maybe an oligopoly of few models at this layer. Do you agree with this view? And also, there's also a talk about this model of open model versus closed model. Which one will be more dominant? Do you have any views on this? What's the competitive landscape will be like at the foundation model layer?
Yeah, this is basically what I think about and work on every day. Yeah, so every day we have a research and development team in Japan as well, and we're deciding which kind of models do we want to build. Do we want to build like bigger text models? Do we want to build bigger language models? Do we want to build like a text model just for the advertising industry, right? There are so many different types of models you could build, right? And then, yeah, also the competitive landscape is changing quickly, right? But I think, we will not just have a world where, the entire world is only using like one model or three models. I think that's too extreme. I do agree, to answer your question, that probably, not all of these, foundation model companies will kind of survive in their current form. So we don't need, like thousands of companies building foundation models because basically the foundation models are kind of are general enough and have like enough knowledge built into them that most companies can actually build off of the foundation models instead of building the foundation models themselves. So I think, but you could have different foundation models that do certain things well, right? So for example, like you could fine tune a foundation model for the like marketing industry or for like let's say the online learning industry, or you could build from scratch a foundation model for the online learning industry. It's perhaps you could actually create a smaller model that's specifically for the online learning industry. You could also choose a foundation model that is easier to fine tune for that specific use case, right? So I think a big problem right now is cost and speed, right? So some people say like, oh well, why don't you just use GPT-4 for everything, right? And you don't need to think about other models, right? But actually, like when a lot of companies try and doing that, they run into various problems, right? So like one, it is too slow. Two, it is not as good as Japanese as it is in English. Three, it is too expensive. If you're an app that has like millions of DAU, and then each of the DAUs, each of your users is causing inference for that AI every day. That could end up in you paying like $1 million every day, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to pick another model that maybe doesn't have to know like all the knowledge in the world. It only has to know the knowledge for that specific use case, or like in maybe some other basic knowledge, right? So this kind of, and also another big need is for security and privacy, right? So some people, they don't, like actually there was a survey in Japan that said 94% of users and enterprises are concerned about their data leaking out when they use generative AI. And this is a problem when the AI model you're using is only available via an external black box API, right? But for example, in open models, such as the models that we create as Stability AI, they're open, which means you can download them to whatever location you want. You can put them in your own predefined environment within AWS or Google Cloud. You can put them on your own servers on premise. You can put them anywhere you want, right? And then that allows enterprises to satisfy their privacy and security guarantees and not leak out the data to somewhere else, right? So that's and also open models have the benefit of like anybody can do research on them, anybody can like analyze the internals of the model and like understand what is going on, right? So for example, the Stable Diffusion, our image generation ecosystem is very strong because by default it's what people benchmark on and what people use when they try to build further research on the image generation. Yeah.
Karim, do you have any views on here?
Yes, absolutely. I mostly just concur with what Jerry said. I mean, I think the world is not going to be dominated by just a few models. We see a real need for many models. Certainly, I imagine a world where each one of us will have our own personalized large language model depending upon our own preferences and tastes. And certainly the work we're doing at Mozilla is trying to push forward on that. We also see, an interesting thing in our paper that we just recently did on our experiment. What we found was that there is a tendency for the same use case. If many people are using the generative AI system, then the solutions tend to converge. And we actually want diversity. And so just for that matter, I think we'll see companies wanting to adopt multiple large language models, invent new large language models. The other thing I was going to say at the beginning of your comment, I mean, I think today the cost is high, right? Lots of data needed and lots of compute needed. But it kind of reminds me of, if you study the history of technology, when things come out of labs and they start hitting commercial use, at that time, the technology is like fragile and expensive and hard to use. But over time, with consistent engineering efforts, they get cheaper and faster and better. So just think about it like 100 years ago when cars were coming on stream and roads were being built. Like the Ford Model T or whatever was in Germany, right, was one engine, right, probably made like 10 horsepower and it was like really heavy and really polluting and broke down a lot, right? But then if you just did a straight line projection of the Ford Model T engine and said, what will a Ford engine today be like? Well, the Ford engine today might have up to 500 horsepower, is probably more energy efficient, less polluting, right? And probably is way more reliable than that engine there. And so what happened was that there's been 100 years of massive engineering effort to make the thing really good. And I think we're just months into this stuff getting out of the labs and into industrial settings. And I expect compute costs to decline, data needs to decline quite a bit as time goes on as well.
Thanks a lot. I think we share the view that the cost will be declining. The models may get cheaper or smaller, and as a result, there'll be a lot of foundation models out there going forward. And let's talk about what's going to happen at the application layer. Already, there are a lot of applications being developed on top of the foundation models, as well as foundation model players are building their own application as well, I think, as Stability AI is doing. Do you have any views on here? What's the hot theme at the application layer, and what will be like the competitive landscape out there?
Thank you. So it's very timely. LinkedIn, we just announced the 2 new features using generative AI last week, which is one, it's a LinkedIn coach for learning, is what you can ask online. Okay, I'm in a meeting with my CEO. He asked me to give him feedback. What do I say? Then it can give, okay, basically this is what you want to say. And if you want to prepare for it, these are the courses you can take. And you can also, I have a big negotiation coming up with my biggest partner. What do I do with this, to gain the most out of it? And it can give all this advice on top of how to prepare with learning. So that's a great way also for every manager to engage in one-on-one with your direct to, career development and also how to best enable your employees. That's one feature. Another one is called Recruiter 2024. If you, type in very generally, I like to look for, this AI talent who has background in Google, data scientist, blah, blah, blah. It generates from 950 members globally to, really consolidate and gives you the best possible talent availability too. So those are 2 features, but there are so many others coming up. And we've seen the data. If you have a job post that has ChatGPT or generative AI, there's 17% increase in applications. So the people are looking for jobs or companies who are already using AI because they see the future there. And so is the professionals are learning AI, generative AI at the exponential speed too. So there definitely will be more applications coming up.
I see. It's great, LinkedIn is making their own application
Yes.
Within your company.
Yes, and we have, because Microsoft is our parent company
Yeah.
too, so we share a lot of developments together.
Yeah. What's your perspective, Jerry? So from the foundation layer, I'm sure a lot of companies are working with Stability AI to build their application. Is there any do you see more activities in certain area than others, or who are the most aggressive players at application layer?
Oh, I see, a lot of aggressive players across industries, right? But for example, the marketing, promotion use case is a big one. Content generation and design, those are big ones. So for example, Canva, which is a kind of design app with over 100 million active users, they actually combine several different generative AI models and backends, including Stable Diffusion, including like a Runway, which generates video, to power their existing design app, right? So basically, they have the benefit of already having that distribution channel with a lot of users, and then kind of powering up that experience for their users to kind of increase the retention and increase the usefulness for their users. I think, also another example is recently Stability AI collaborated with the Hakuhodo and Asahi Beer in Japan to launch a marketing campaign where anybody can just upload a photo of themselves holding the can of their beer that they just started selling, and we will change it into an artistic style, and this is used for basically their branding and marketing activities, right? So I think a lot of value is added by providing an easy to use UI, UX, making sure that there's good distribution, that it's easy to use, because oftentimes I go to someone and say like, hey, we made this, awesome model, and then they're like, oh, how do I use it? And I'm like, oh, you can go here and like download this Python library and then like get this GPU. They're like, no, I don't want to hear that. Like, that's too much trouble, right? So the application layer to make it easy to use for kind of normal people, that is like super important. Yeah, something that we're not good at. So we need to work with partners to do that, like application developer partners. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Karim, I heard you advise a lot of companies to take on AI. What's your view here on the application layer?
Look, I think all the action is going to be in the application layer and the use cases. And so I actually kind of get mad at executives when they say, "Oh, we banned ChatGPT." Our IT group has banned it, our lawyers freaked out and we banned it. I think it's the worst thing you can do. I think it's going to exacerbate the digital divide, the AI divide that exists between companies. Already, with my smartphone now, I have 10 different large language models available right now, right? And the worry I have is that, at least in the US, there's been lots of conversations about shadow IT, like people doing their own IT things in their different departments. I think shadow AI is already here as well. So what I encourage executives to do is to actually embrace this, actually use generative AI systems to brainstorm all the use cases that could apply to a company. Do it collectively, do a company-wide hackathon, take a day off, and just everybody focus in on learning how to use the system and using the system to come up with new ideas. And that, I think, is going to generate thousands of use cases inside of a company. And then the job of the leadership then is to then say, okay, which am I going to sequence? Which am I going to prioritize? How they connect with my strategy? Which ones seem too far off? They're going to hurt us. Which ones are actually going to be useful? That's going to unleash a lot of energy amongst your employees. Right now, employees are looking at executives and they're saying, I'm not sure if you guys get it, right? Already, like, there's like a knowing doing gap with AI. The fact that 90%, 80% said that this would impact their careers and only 20% are using it every day shows a big gap in this room already, right? And so I think my suggestion is for everybody to get going with this. Take some of the LinkedIn courses that Lakhani mentioned on AI. I use YouTube quite a bit as well to learn how to do prompt engineering. Lots of great courses there, and start using it and start generating use cases. Because I think for the companies, that's going to be the best way to move forward, is to identify use cases and then work with the foundation model companies like a Microsoft, like a OpenAI, like a Google, to implement those solutions. But the use cases have to be determined by you, not by somebody else.
I also wanted to ask Karim to mention about the case study that you did with Boston Consulting Group, since it was so inspirational and gave me lots of ideas.
Oh, thanks so much, Lakhani. So this is probably one of the most ambitious research projects in the 25 years I've been doing research. So this was basically asking this question, like, how does ChatGPT really, ChatGPT-4, might impact knowledge workers? So we cooperated with the Boston Consulting Group, and we're in a global experiment with about 758 consultants, so 7% of their individual contributor workforce. And we basically identified two sets of tasks. One that was more a creative problem solving, new product development task, and one was more of a business analysis task, trying to understand spreadsheets and make sense of interviews and so forth. And the tasks were picked. Inside of each of them, there's a range of additional tasks. And these tasks were picked such that some tasks were inside the frontier of what AI does, and some tasks were outside the frontier of what AI does, where AI doesn't work so well. And what we saw for the inside the frontier tasks, something pretty remarkable. So everybody got pre-tested, and then we randomly assigned them to treatments of ChatGPT access or no ChatGPT access. And what we discovered is that the difference between those with ChatGPT and those without ChatGPT in terms of quality of output on a range of dimensions, 40% improvement. 40% improvement in the quality of output, as judged by BCG folks on the quality of the output. Okay. We then also looked at how much faster they were. So they were, 25% faster and got 12% more tasks done in that same time period. Now, remember, we're selecting from people that are already from elite schools, right? BCG, when they hire in Japan, only hires from elite schools. When it comes to the US, only hires from elite schools. So we already have graduates in our setup, which are already like super elite. And there we're seeing this big boost in performance. Even the ones inside of BCG that were top performance, above average performers, their quality increased by 17% on top. So big boosts. But then we also discovered something important, which was that when in tasks that the AI is not good at, right, people's performance went worse because they were over reliant on the machines. And this is going to be a big part of the choices that we'll face. Now, of course, the frontier of what the machines do keeps increasing, but there will always be some things that the machines can't do, which humans will have to do. And if they rely on machines to do the things machines can't do, we'll have bad performance. And so we discovered, again, a drop in performance with AI for tasks that were outside the frontier. Basically, in our task list, there was a bunch of mistakes in the spreadsheet that you could only figure out if you read through the transcript reports very carefully. So those that just went into the AI system and just asked it for answers without being able to know what the problems were, ran into trouble. Okay. And so this for me is a really important aspect, which is massive boost in performance, at the same time, some worries we should be having. And so the question I think we all face now is, how do we actually think about this as a cognitive aid for all of us? How do we think about this as a tool that we have going on? You might have heard some rumors that Joni Ive from Apple and so Sam Altman were thinking about a new hardware device. Well, what I'm imagining now is that we will have constant AI companions with us, that'll be thinking with us, that'll be doing our work for us as well. But us becoming the captains of those co-pilots would be very important. Thanks for kind of asking me that question.
Yeah, and I want to build on and ask Wakana-san, going into our third part, which is, how do we incorporate AI in the workforce and in society? What should we do? What's going to be the impact of AI to the workforce and jobs?
When I learned about this result of Karim's study, I found, I thought, wow, it's so important how to be a co-pilot, not just asking, generative AI to drive the company or project or strategy. It's important to really own it yourself. And the decision making still has to be on humans. And that's why it's so important to develop these talents who are able to understand how best to apply AI in the work, in the jobs that you do, in the companies. What we see, so I was just in New York City until 2 days ago, I was attending a big conference on talents and generative AI. And there they were discussing about the transformation of work. The future work will be future of learning. And also HR will be able to need to really invest in AI in order to really divide the work between the humans and AI or generative AI. Each job can be divided into tasks, and each task will be categorized. Either it can be automated or it's highly likable to be replaced or not. And then there needs to be a new AI transformational talent who's able to identify and analyze, which category of task will be more borne by the humans who are able to apply more, decision-making, ethical, creative thinking, and communication are required. And the role of the companies will be changing to educators too, I think, because it's ever-changing technology that's, that's happening right now. And once you have your employees, you need to really develop their employee skill sets and also soft skills as well, so that your company is able to apply these, and fill the gaps as you go on. So I think this is very new, to be able to, employers should be able to educate. And also the growth mindset is another point that's very important for the people to learn more self-initiatively, not to be pushed to learn, but so that it's their career keeps developing and they feel great about learning new skills. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with your point, but I think the problem is that not many or not enough people are using AI maybe.
Right,
I
especially in
think,
Japan too.
yeah, I think LinkedIn did a survey, and 64% of Japanese said that the AI will benefit their work, but actually only 19% use it every day. As leaders of companies or business or society, what can leaders do to encourage more people to work with AI and incorporate it in their business or organization?
I love to hear Karim's input as well, but
Sure.
if I could just repeat what he said, leaders are facing the options now, whether to ignore AI or Gen AI or to embrace it. And I think I highly recommend to embrace it because it's here to stay. And it's going to be how internet really affected everyone. I think AI is going to really affect everyone, and to really harness the growth mindset of the leaders as well.
Thanks, Karim. What's your view here? What should leaders do?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the learning mandate. Now, I'm selfish about the learning mandate because I'm an educator. I think everybody should be learning a lot, but I would just argue that learning is so important. And the analogy I want to use for why this is important, why leaders need to actually learn. Don't outsource it to your assistants, to your VPs, your SVPs. The leaders actually have to actually embrace this, and be on the leading edge of this. And here's why. It's kind of like the thing is that when we are in our 40s and 50s, and 30s and 40s and 50s, learning is hard. Learning new skills is hard because we've invested in our teenage years, in our high school years, and in our university years, up to our PhDs, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, in learning. And then we think we learned enough, and then we're done. But this is a new tool. It's a new tool that is new to humankind in history. I don't think there's been any other tool like this where we actually have something that can think with us, that can engage in conversation with us, even though it's not actually thinking or engaging in conversation. It's just statistics, right, at the back end. But it provides that appearance that can trigger similar assessments in you. And so this new tool we have to learn how to use. And I always think about, sort of learning how to swim or learning how to ride a bike. When you're learning how to swim, your first few weeks, are horrible, right? Because you're just drowning, literally drowning. You fail until you pick it up. And then once you pick it up, you can't unlearn how to swim, right? You can't unlearn how to swim. It's just embedded in you. Same with riding a bicycle, right? You when you first ride a bike, you fall down, you injure yourself, you have bloody knees, you have bloody elbows, scraped. I mean, if you have kids now, you can see that right now. You wear a helmet to protect yourself. And there's like weeks of like trying to learn how to ride a bike, and then you become good at it, and then you can't unlearn it. And so I want to tell the leaders that are out here that are listening to us that you need to invest in the learning, and it's going to be embarrassing. You're going to look like an idiot. You're going to feel foolish, but that's part of the journey you have to do. So this becomes a native skill for you. And Steve Jobs said when the computer was first invented, he goes, it's like the bicycle for the mind. I think we finally have it. It's taken us 40 years, but I think we finally have the bicycle for the mind. And once we have it, we have to learn how to ride it, right? And writing it is going to be important, but learning is going to be the most critical thing you can do.
And probably the first step is maybe to take the LinkedIn courses on AI.
Yes. What kind of going to give us all discounts?
Yes. We also have a data when the leader learns that entire team is really improving its culture of learning together. So I think it's really good that leaders shows by learning, and share. I think it's also important. Social learning is really impactful.
Okay, so with that, I will now open up for questions. For your questions, please start with your name and also who your question is addressed to and your question. All within 30 seconds or less. Okay, we'll take a few questions at once, maybe starting from there. And then here.
Thank you. Thank you for the very insightful insights from your perspective. I'm Daniel Moraro. I'm working as a professor at the National University in Japan, also a graduate of GLOBIS. My question is about the future of learning, basically, in the generative AI world. Especially, do you see a cooperation, let's say, between LinkedIn Learning and universities in the future? How can we implement as well products of AI, generative AI, into universities? And of course, there are other questions, but I think time is out, so that's it.
So we'll take a few questions at once.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your beautiful insights today. I am Jorge Calvo. I am Deputy Dean of GLOBIS Business School. I am a scholar of AI, and I didn't have the opportunity to attend your classes in HBS, Karim, but I follow you as a scholar. So I have two questions, if I might, very quickly. One to Professor Karim as a scholar. What do you think about the different speed of adoption of the AI in the business schools and in the general business? And this difference might be a challenge for the future as well as we contribute to the education of the next futures. And another question is for the industry about sustainability, carbon footprint. And you smile, you know more or less the question is, what about the consumption of generative AI that is among between 3 or 30 times more than the traditional cloud computing platforms? So what do you think, if this is sustainable or how we can approach to this challenge? Thank you.
Okay, so the first question will be addressed by probably Karim, and second, Jerry, you want to take it? So let's take those two questions first. So Wakana-san, do you want to answer the
future of learning?
Yes.
Thank you for the question. So 3 things I think about the future of learning. Because of Gen AI, as I mentioned, the learning will be seamless, more conversational style. And for example, for LinkedIn Learning, it's from trusted sources. So it's not open. We're not collecting all the information from the public. It's really from the trusted sources, like very famous professors or influencers who are willing to contribute their knowledge to the platform. And the way I see the education today also, you see the difference in children's learning when it's customized for that child. You learn the best from tutoring, from not just attending a big class, but children learn the best when the learning is customized and teaching is customized to your own needs. And that's possible with generative AI and with online courses. So that's going to happen, and I think it also is very special because it includes the element of fun. You see you're learning, you're improving, and you feel the joy of learning. So I think that's going to be all part of this reskilling scheme, and how companies will embrace, I think, reskilling and developing, educating their employees will be also in conjunction with the career development. Hopefully with internal mobility will be increased in Japanese companies as well. It's already very trendy, a lot of US companies and global companies are also using this internal mobility. But the best talents for when you're looking for new skill sets, new jobs, the best talents are in your organization actually, because they are willing to learn, and they love your company, they are loyal. So there's a lot that companies can do about future learning.
Thanks. And Karim?
Yeah, let me build on that. I think Wakana's points actually apply to how we learn at schools as well. So it's no different. I would say, by the way, I've told our dean that our competition is not Stanford or Wharton or Columbia at Harvard Business School. Our Stanford is LinkedIn. Our competition is LinkedIn Learning. Like, we just don't know it yet. That's all. I mean, it's clear to me. So here's what I would say. I mean, I think to the question, there are two things. There's both the content, and I think there's a process. On the content side, I would say that one thing is that the joke I make is that there are 2 HBS alums here in the panel with me. In their first year, they took accounting. If we had made accounting an optional course, they would not have taken that course. But they took accounting because we thought that was an important thing for you to know. My sense is that data science and AI has to be a required course for all MBAs. There's no question about that. There just isn't any more question about that. So I think that it matters a ton. So this is now the new accounting, and we need to make sure that every MBA student graduating actually has these skills underneath them. Now, they don't need to become programmers. In fact, ChatGPT solves that problem for you. In fact, our data science for management course now for all MBA students are in the required curriculum. You don't need to learn Python or R. You learn how to use ChatGPT to do all the queries. And certainly the new advanced data analysis module does even many more things than that. So I think that's important. The second thing is, I think the content of the courses that we teach also, I think, changes because, we have a tried and true operations course, but we don't have anything on sort of digital operations. More and more, many more companies will require digital operations. And so I think we sort of think about digital X every course, there has to be new content that needs to be created for all those courses as well. Then I think the more profound thing actually is what Lakhani is saying. And I think my view is for higher education in general, not just for MBA programs, higher education in general, ChatGPT is worse than COVID. We just don't know it yet. Because now I think I've already tried this, right? I can put in any case in ChatGPT and it'll solve the case for me in a few minutes. If I'm sophisticated at it, it'll even be better. So all the times, our two panelists, HBS alum panelists that stayed up all night studying, you don't need to anymore. You can just go to ChatGPT, right? And the whole issue is that what we teach, how we teach, is going to change radically. So now that students have access to a machine that gives them all the answers for a case, can crack the case for them, what do we teach in the classroom then? How much further do we need to go? And this is not just an issue in the MBA program. This is an issue in medicine. This is an issue in law. This is an issue in physics. And every single program around the world in higher education or education in general, this is going to be a major issue. We just haven't, like what happened with the COVID pandemic is that we all felt it at the same time and we all got isolated. So we go, oh, this is important. With this, as we sort of did the little poll this morning, right? There's variation. There's variation in people's views about this and experiences with this, and so then we'll see these differences. But back to what Lakhani said, I can imagine personalized learning at scale, right? Right now, it's hard to do personalized learning at scale. We can't all afford tutors to be with us every single time. But what Khan Migo has sort of shown out of Khan Academy, you can do that. You can build those things. At Harvard, our CS50 class is using lots of generative AI tools, but they're not giving them answers. It's a tutor that helps you think better, helps you ask questions. So I really think that's going to be part of, I think every MBA class is going to need this, right? Every MBA class is going to need its bot that's going to help the student understand better and learn more along the way.
Okay. And Jerry?
Again, I really think Lakhani is our competition, not Stanford, not because Lakhani already has the data, right? Already doing these things, right? LinkedIn is already doing these things. They just don't know it yet, right? And LinkedIn doesn't know that, they don't care about HBS, right? Because the scale is crazy. But HBS is doesn't think about LinkedIn as our Netflix. Like if we're Disney, they're Netflix, and we should be on their platform instead of doing our own silly things.
Do you want to comment?
No, I just instead of sending people to MBAs anymore, I think you can sign up with LinkedIn Learning. For example, Singapore, Singapore government, they just we are partnering with the Singapore government now. Everyone in the bureaucracy, bureaucrats, they're becoming AI talents now in Singapore, and they're using LinkedIn Learning to digital, train their government officials. So I think that's going to really change in the next 2 years, where not only for company, but public servants too, everywhere. So, yeah.
And Jerry, the question on sustainability?
I think there's the sustainability of the kind of ramp up in compute costs, right? So I think in the short term, yes, there will be multiple companies that throw billions of dollars at this problem of wanting to train the next cutting edge foundation models. So this will keep on happening for a while. We are also spending a lot of money on this, but I think there's a lot of improvements that are rapidly coming at the various layers of the tech stack, right? So at the hardware layer, like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they're designing their own chips. For example, on Google, TPUs are also very good at training these foundation models more efficiently. NVIDIA and like H100 is more efficient than in the A100 at training these models, right? So the cost will definitely come down from the hardware perspective, and also from the kind of software or like algorithmic perspective. There are many ways to kind of save on cost, right? So for example, when fine-tuning a model, there's a method called LoRa, or low rank adaptation, where you kind of freeze most of the parameters of a model, and then you only train like a very small percentage of them and get like almost all of the benefit. So I think there will be kind of innovations at the various levels of the tech stack where, in a couple of years, it won't really make sense to spend billions of dollars on training a model. You can get like probably like almost the same benefit while spending like way less, like only a few $1 million or even less, depending on your use case.
Okay, maybe time for two more questions, two more short questions. The gentleman in the back.
Okay, I'm Hiroshi Saito from Microsoft, and I would like you to, Jerry, ask you regarding responsible AI. The statistics that Tanaka-san quoted, 15 or 19% of the Japanese using 19 utilizing AI technology. I'm pretty Japan optimist, and I'm pretty much doubtful about that questionnaire result because public sector usually very cautious about using it, but personally they're using quite a lot. So it all depends upon responsibility. How are you going to serve for that responsibilities in your business?
Okay, thanks. That's for Jerry. And then the last question.
Thank you. My name is Aiste. I'm from GLOBIS Europe, the newest GLOBIS branch based in Brussels. I actually would like to hear a little bit more about the study that Professor Karim described. And you talked about how for the tasks within the tier of AI, the performance increased, versus for those outside of the tier of AI, the performance went down. I wonder if there was a look into combination of that and how the performance and effectiveness would be affected based on that, just very shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe 1 minute answer each.
Yeah, this is difficult to answer quickly because I could talk for hours about this topic of responsible AI. But yeah, for example, there's the problem of like, okay, if there's like a generated text or generated image, how do you tell if it was generated by AI or not, right? So for example, for our stable diffusion, like image generation service, we have adopted Adobe's CAI, a Content Authenticity Initiative, where there's metadata embedded into the generated file so that you can easily tell if it was generated by AI and which AI it was generated by, right? Also, we have functionality such as allowing people to opt out of their images to be trained on, and also we have a filter to prevent, not safe for work output images because that might cause some problems for society. So yeah, in short, there are various kind of algorithms, methods, and also like decisions that can be made when creating these models and like when rolling out these AI models for people to use. Yeah, but it's definitely a difficult topic, and also would welcome a discussion later about this. Yeah.
Thank you. And Karim?
Yeah, I mean, I could also, like Jerry, talk for like 5 hours about my paper, so I'm not going to do that. I encourage you to just Google it. Just put SSRN Lakhani and Mollick, M-O-L-L-I-C-K, and you'll see the paper. It's called The Jagged Frontier of AI. It's on SSRN. It's available for free download. What I would sort of say is that in the task that was outside the frontier, there were two components. There was an analysis component and there was a writing component. So you had to analyze the situation and then make a recommendation. So here's what we discovered. So those with AI had worse accuracy. There was a right answer there. And then basically without AI, 85% of the consultants got the answer right. With AI, between only 60 and 70% of the consultants got it right, okay? So a pretty big drop. But then we also looked at, regardless of how good the recommendation was, I mean, how accurate the recommendation was, if the recommendation was right or wrong. We also looked at the content they created to make a case for their recommendation, right? Like, I say blah, blah, blah should be done. Well, what we discovered there was that those with AI, even if they were wrong, wrote more convincing prose, more convincing arguments than those without. That creates a worse nightmare, right? Because now all of a sudden you're getting better at BSing, right? Or other French words we can use. And the whole point is that this is exactly the jagged frontier. Like, these systems have been built, including stability. The owners, the makers of them, don't really know. Like, there's no user manual that comes out. Like, there's lots of YouTube videos we watch for people discovering all these cases, and even like the folks, like, it's weird. Like, you wouldn't think AI is bad at math, but good at creativity. But that's what these systems are doing. And so this jagged frontier analogy that we've used helps us to think about, in a stream of work that people will do in their jobs, there'll be some things that the AI is going to be good at, and some things AI is not going to be good at. And this will then make sure this then makes us responsible to make sure that we know where those frontiers are and really discover them. And at the moment we don't. We stumbled onto it ourselves in our work and trying to do this study. But I think there's a lot more to be done there. It's kind of like what I do right now. Like, I have a Tesla, and I've turned on full self-driving beta. It's incredibly good on highways. It switches lanes, it drives, it does great things. But in Harvard Square, like, I'm scared. I'm like, either it's going to kill me or it's going to like get into something, hit up a student, worst thing, and so that I'm actually even more alert when I'm training my robot at that time. Like, I'm like hyper aware, even more so than when I'm driving without it. Especially in Harvard Square in Cambridge. So that's the analogy I would use. And I'll shut up now.
Well, all fascinating talk, and I wish we can continue forever. But our time is up. Thanks very much for the panelists for all the comments and insights. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you.